Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are diving into what is literally one of the most fascinating transformations in modern sports history. We're breaking down Cristiano Ronaldo's massive two-decade career. But look, we aren't just going to list his trophies or talk about his greatness. Instead, we're looking at his evolution as an absolute masterpiece of athletic engineering. We're going to examine exactly how he entirely rebuilt his game and his body to conquer world football.
Now, you might be wondering, as Ronaldo moved into his 30s, was his evolution on the pitch just a natural result of getting older? Or was it a deliberate, calculated lab project? The public narrative usually just says, hey, he slowed down, so he moved into the center of the pitch. But the data, and the sports science we're exploring today, shows his transformation was anything but accidental. We're going to completely demystify his peak performance right now.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for his hero's upgrade. First up, the chaos creator. Then, engineering a striker. Next is the pace framework. After that, we'll look at record-breaking efficiency, and finally, a blueprint for longevity. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The Chaos Creator. So think back to his early days under Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United. You're probably remembering a very, very different player than the guy we know today.
Back then, young Ronaldo was this classic wide-dribbling winger. The tracking data from that era shows him regularly crushing over 11 to 11.5 kilometers per match. His whole game was just endless, exhausting, one-on-one touchline duels against fullbacks. He was a pure chaos creator. He took a massive volume of shots from way outside the box. We're talking 18 to 25 yards out, which meant his expected goals, or XG, per shot was actually super low. And if you're not a stats nerd, expected goals just measures how likely a shot is to actually go in. Taking so many shots from out wide, yeah, those chances were incredibly tough. Basically, he burned a ton of energy creating chaos rather than prioritizing high-efficiency finishing in the box.
The contrast between the two halves of his career is absolutely wild. Think about the grueling physical demands of his Premier League winger role. Huge distances covered, touchline sprints, and that low XG per shot. But jump forward to his peak at Real Madrid and Juve, he transformed into a hyper-efficient central striker. He started operating almost entirely in central zones, taking high-probability shots inside the box and saving all his energy for these short, explosive movements. So how on earth did he bridge the gap between these two totally different styles of play? That brings us to Section 2, engineering a striker. His world record transfer to Real Madrid in 2009 really sparked this highly calculated shift that redefined his entire career.
What's really interesting is the actual mathematical proof of his optimization. Between 2012 and 2015, we see this insane efficiency paradox. Ronaldo actually dropped his average distance covered per game by about 17%, but at the exact same time, he bumped up his shots per 90 minutes by 22%. He was literally running significantly less while shooting significantly more. That is not just a guy getting older, that is a guy optimizing every single meter he runs on the pitch.
Section 3. The pace framework. Okay, so what was the actual mechanism behind this crazy physical transformation? To get that, we need to look at a specific sports science model.
It's called the PACE framework. That stands for power, agility, cognition, and economy. Early on, his physical profile was all about agility. Those quick, short burst changes of direction out on the wing. But as he evolved, he systematically swapped his stats around like a video game character. He traded that raw touchline agility for explosive power to dominate in the air. He leveled up his cognition to outsmart center backs instead of just beating fullbacks, and he drastically improved his economy to conserve his energy for when it mattered most.
And this whole evolution was totally driven by data. The sports science departments at his clubs were meticulously calculating his exact physical load and performance output using internal tracking metrics. By crunching those numbers, conditioning experts worked directly with him to make sure he was producing the exact same level of attacking threat, but with way fewer wasted meters.
To actually pull off this new physical profile, his dedication behind the scenes was just off the charts. Listen to this weekly lab routine. He's putting in 3 to 4 hours a day, 5 to 6 times a week. And get this, that's completely separate from his normal team training. Mondays were for hammering lower body plyometrics like box jumps to build that massive vertical leap. Thursdays, quads and explosive first step acceleration. Fridays were all about core strength to generate that ridiculous shot power. This wasn't a workout for a tricky winger. This was a bespoke, highly engineered routine to build the ultimate penalty box predator.
And the result of all that sheer dedication, it really comes down to one number, 7%. Even at 35 years old, thanks to this crazy training, his diet, and his recovery, his subcutaneous body fat sat at a remarkable 7%. That's a full 3% lower than the average professional footballer. The guy literally built himself into a machine.
Section 4. Record-breaking efficiency. Now let's look at the tangible, awe-inspiring results of this optimized framework out on the pitch.
450? That is the unbelievable number of goals this perfectly engineered machine scored for Real Madrid. But honestly, the truly staggering part, he scored those 450 goals in just 438 games. He literally averaged more than a goal a game for a 9-season span. It's just absurd.
And this brilliantly illustrates his capacity for high-volume, ruthless efficiency. In 2013, he drops a spectacular hat trick against Sweden to basically single-handedly drag Portugal to the World Cup. In 2015, he scores 5 goals in a single match against Granada, and then just casually does it again a few months later against Espanyol. By compressing his movements into the penalty box and hoarding his energy for the exact right moment, he could just completely overwhelm the opposition.
Section 5. A blueprint for longevity. Because as you'll see, this whole energy conservation strategy didn't just inflate his goal numbers, it extended his dominance way past a normal athlete's expiration date.
Just think about this staggering international longevity, winning the Euros in 2016, the Nations League in 2019, breaking Ali Daei's all-time international goal record in 2021, and crossing that insane 900 career goal mark in 2024. How do you stay that fresh for these massive historic moments well into your late 30s? Well, it goes back to a metric analysts call the off-ball pressure suffocation rate. Put simply, by deliberately dropping his defensive pressing out wide, basically letting his teammates do all the exhausting defensive running, he saved his legs. He refused to hit that wall of physical and emotional exhaustion that ends the careers of so many explosive wingers. He kept himself primed for the absolute highest stakes. Which brings us to an incredibly fitting quote to wrap up our explainer today. Ronaldo built a template for how elite attackers can survive and thrive, treating his body and role like a solvable optimization puzzle. He didn't just play the game, right? He hacked it. He used relentless discipline, sports science, and tactical intelligence to completely reinvent himself. And it leaves us with a really provocative thought. Considering the sheer willpower and calculation required, will we ever see a player engineer themselves this perfectly again? I'll leave you to ponder that. Thanks so much for joining me to explore this incredible source material and keep questioning what it takes to achieve true greatness.